Our next inductee this afternoon is Dr. Bill Bussey. Introducing Dr. Bussey is going to be his son, Kelly Bussey. Kelly's been involved in ballooning with his father in many ways and forms. One of his first real jobs was working on the crew of his father's old Milwaukee and his Splits hot air balloon teams. I'm from Milwaukee, so I always like that. He's been much more involved with his dad's love and passion. He became much more involved with his dad's love and passion for the sport as a communications director for 7 of Bill's world record flights. Though his love of hot air ballooning, it just was not fast enough for him. So Kelly went on to build a career in the motorsports industry, starting as a weekend race driver, consultant, and as a broadcaster. He also worked as a race spotter for numerous Winston Cup teams, Craftsman Truck Series, and Winston West racing programs. All these paths led him to opening his own business, the Racing Experience Driving School. This turned out to be a great move for Kelly as he grew the school from just a startup business to an over $1 million business. In 2000, he sold his business to the Skip Barber Racing School, where he became the executive director of the second largest stock car racing school in the country. Kelly left the racing industry in 2012 and started a career in the Texas oil industry, where he has worked in pipeline management and is currently a project manager for Select Energy Services. Although he didn't exactly follow Dr. Bill's footsteps in dentistry or hot air ballooning, he does credit his dad with setting the bar high enough for him to accomplish all the goals that he has. I'd like to introduce to you Bill Bussey's biggest fan, Kelly Bussey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the kind words, Kim. I am the oldest son of Dr. Bussey, probably the proudest son. Biggest fan by far, oldest fan by far, of course. He's the proud father of 3, grandfather of 3 also, great friend, and mentor to all of us. So one thing that I've listened to Troy's story and I've listened to his kids talk, and as I go through all that and listen to it, I understand that this is about passion. It is about commitment to achieve certain goals in the world and setting your mind to doing that. And that's one thing he's always done since day one. I can sit up here and tell you about all his championships and everything he's accomplished, but it truly comes down to his desire and his passion to push us to do the same things. He does it for Zach, he does it for his kids, saw it across the board for his grandkids as well. And one of his favorite things to say, as I'm sure you've all heard him say, is failure is just not an option. Well, the newest one I heard him say was last night, so this is how current it is. We were worried about where we might land and how we were going to do it. And he said, one thing I can assure you, I've never left one in the air. I'm going to take you to his first, I guess it was his first lesson. We were out at Lake Cherokee where the whole family lives around a little bit. There were these guys from Tyler, Texas that came in and they owned this rickety old Picard balloon that I think should have been in the museum even back then. You know, it was pretty rough looking. And he takes off in the balloon and he goes on and we fly. And I just remember being in the back of the truck and I'm really young. And so as we landed and he gets in and they're all telling the stories and I'm just in amazement of the fact that he'd gone off in this thing and actually landed at one point and gotten back in the truck and going along. And they're telling this story and they're using some bad words and there may have been an adult beverage being consumed in celebration. And he looks over at me and he goes, I think I know more about these things than they do. So there the passion actually began. I mean, it started right then. It wasn't a week later in my mind that this triangle box was delivered out of a horse trailer in the front yard. They dropped it off. I remember being, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning and I've got to go to school and there's some guy in the front yard with a trailer that's dumping this thing off. And I ran in there and I said, Dad, there's a guy out in the front yard, you know, putting a box in the front yard. Oh, my balloon's here. And he goes running out there in the front yard. And of course that means shut the world down. We're inflating this thing in the field right here, right now. So we inflate this balloon and we're from a small town, Longview. The main road goes right by this little area that we're inflating. The whole world shuts down. Police are called. There's a UFO that's landed in the field. And the whole place goes nuts. By the time I get to school about 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning, everyone knew that Dr. Bussey owned a hot air balloon in Longview, Texas. I became very popular, of course. Yeah, that's the balloon. So therein was the beginning, and then he kind of started getting serious about it. And so he buys this balloon with a partner. Now, the partner was a 280-pound center for the Texas A&M Fighting Aggie football team. So he was a very large man. So congratulations to being 9 years old on your official solo flight. I'm going to tell you about my unofficial solo flight. I know I'm not close. But I told you, you're the most nervous person here because you don't know what I'm going to tell you. It's on, I want to make sure y'all hear this. So we all get in this balloon, and let's just call it a Sunday afternoon, and we fly across, and where we live is in the East Texas areas where there are river bottoms, and you don't want to fly in these certain areas of the Sabine River. You just stay away from down there. Well, of course, right to it we go. It's me and Dad and this gentleman named Jim, and we run out of fuel, and we get becalmed at the same time, and we're out of fuel completely. And so this was back before the thought of drop lines were even in anybody's mind. Of course, it's 75 or whatever year it was a long time ago. And so we're completely becalmed. The flame's about this tall out of the burner. We're done. We're out. So we settle down in the top of some swayy pine trees, and Dad says, "I'll get out and pull us down." And so he shimmies out the side of the basket, and he's sitting in the top of this tree holding on to the side of the Firefly balloons on the little triangle handle going, "Oh, man, I can't get it down. I can't pull it down." So he says to his partner, again, 280 pounds, "Get out with me." We talk about passion. Let me tell you about passion. This huge man steps out of that balloon, and I remember just going, and I'm looking over the side, I'm looking over the top of that thing, and I can see Dad, just eyes this big, "Pull the red line." I find that red line, right? And I get to pull it and pulling and pulling until there was yellow in my hand. So I had everything in the world, and then, now I'm 200 feet in the air, coming down like a sock, bam! So I stick it in the ground, not very far away, and I can hear these people yelling and coming through the woods and all this, and it's he and Jim, and all I hear from Dad say is, "Well, you landed in a better spot than I did." That's what I do. They hauled me out of there. I was too young to even swim across the river, so we got eaten up by mosquitoes. We were worried about alligators. There wasn't anything we didn't, experience in that flight along there. So I'll move on then. But that's how it all started. But to kind of go into the references of some of the people on this call as well, I grew up in a world that all these people, all these names, the Sid Cutters of the world, the Bill Murtaugh, Dewey Reinhardt, all the names that we've already heard today already. They were people that called the house and just talked to me for a little while before they talked to Dad. They were the guys that came down and sat on the pier and they told stories at the balloon port. And I never realized just how successful and accomplished these people were until I heard about the Hall of Fame induction. I said, maybe I ought to look into this thing a little bit and find out what's going on. And I realized that all these people that I'd kind of grown up with, that he had put me in the middle of, had an influence on me. And what they've done is instilled the desire to go further and do better and do different things and not be held back by the impossibilities that some people are structured with or combined by. So having said that, I'm fortunate, I'm appreciative for all that you've done for all of us to make sure that we didn't have failure as an option, to make sure we kept pushing and pushing. So as we move forward a little bit more, I'll just tell you that, his passion for things on the ground, in the air, in his dental chair, with family as well. The older he gets, the more accomplished he becomes in all those areas. He doesn't leave anything out. He's much more rounded with everything. He wants to make sure this one is complementary of that one, and this one all works intertwined with one another. So we're all fortunate to know and love him. everybody knows he's the best storyteller in the world, so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, obviously, and I like to tell those stories too. I embellish his stories even a little bit more, so it makes them even a little bit more grandeur in his eyes. So without any further ado, I mean, I'll say to the world record holder, a national record holder, the recipient of the Shield Starter Award, soon to be the Ed Yost recipient at some point in the near future. Father, husband, passionate chaser of dreams, and now Hall of Famer. It's been a hell of a ride, and we sure enjoy it.
I am honored to be here, and that is a trite term. I'm humbled by all these people. I'm humbled by Troy Bradley and Bob Sparks. Troy has, did you say 64 records? If world records were easy, everyone would have one. And they're not easy. And you have to plan and plan and plan and plan again. And Troy has done that. I am insignificant in the world record department. It's a joy to have them though. No one has them. They can't take that away from you. They can beat it, but you always have the record. So that's pretty cool. And Bob Sparks, good gosh, that guy was out there way ahead of everybody. In the early 70s, he was trying to cross the oceans. And he made several attempts in a hot air balloon, not a gas balloon, hot air balloon. And that's quite, you got some big. So I'd like to thank Becky for giving me a phone call some 6 weeks ago to tell me I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. She said, and we're real excited because you're alive. We're alive. So, that is pretty cool to be alive. It's a good feeling. I have no idea what I'm going to say. The story Kelly tells about soloing at 9 was a little different than your solo at 9, I'll tell you. But that is a true story. I was worried about what we're going to tell his mother. I didn't want her to know. And so that concerned me a little bit. I look around this room and I see a lot of people. I'd like for all of my people to stand up, if you would. Stand up, please. These people influenced me. Dewey Reinhardt, right there. Good. I gotta stop it. All right.
I have to tell you one other thing. He calls me up, he said, I'm bringing 18 people, will they fit in your museum? Now, see, they just took a little bit.
They just took a little bit, sure did. And there's plenty more, but Debbie Spade, Sharon Rippiger, I saw her here. People like that really need to, you need to understand these folks really give to ballooning. And that's what I'm here about, is giving back to ballooning, not world records. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a little bit. I look out in the audience and I see Guy Gauthier and Steve Jones, very influential in my world. As a matter of fact, Steve loaned me his 140 to try to break a world record. And all my attempts, only made one that was not successful. And it had to be in your balloon. And I launched from Moriarty, New Mexico, on the way to Pennsylvania, and Troy, I think, holds that record now, in a 140, and it was Steve's 140. I'd never flown a 140. He said, all you got to do is pull that valve line really hard when you land, and I remember that. And so the balloon was spinning. I couldn't figure out why. We found out later that the valve line shrunk, and it was a lens strand, and we found out I think your dad found it out when went around the top in that place we inflated the balloon down there in Belton. But the valve line shrunk, and the balloon started spinning on me, and I was burning excessive fuel. So I elected to land right at dusk, and I launched about 10 o'clock that morning. I elected to land around dusk, and the wind was 42 miles an hour. Well, if you can imagine, if you can imagine being in a basket, getting in the back of a pickup truck and pushing the basket over out of the truck in it at 42 miles an hour, that's what it was like. Except it was on a plowed field. Bounce, 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 bounce. And we drug 863 feet. We measured it, 863 feet. And Steve, I don't know if you noticed this, but when you came to pick us up, we were about 10 feet from a barbed wire fence. And that balloon would have been destroyed had I gone through it at the speed. And Guy Gothier, right over here, had a lot to do with the equipment. He was always there helping me with his ideas, and he'll give you his ideas. And they're most helpful, believe it or not. And he was involved with all the flights too. I'd like to talk about Indianola. When I came up here the first year in 1977, I did not fly, but I thought there was a type of initiation you had to go through because I met Portis Woolley and Bill Murtorf. And I thought, this has to be some kind of initiation. There's no way that you have to go through this to fly hot air balloons, except it's got to be an initiation. And Portis was dead. Well, never mind. Portis will talk to you real slow. And Murtorf looked like a Santa Claus, you know. He's a real character, you know. The very next year I came up here, and there were 108 pilots. And I recall the first task when I met Jeff. By the way, Connie, and there they are. Okay, Connie, may deserve recognition. And Dad right there, sitting by Jeff. The first task was a multiple pilot declared goal. I had no idea what that was. And so I had heard about Paul Wozner, and I went over to Paul, and I said, Paul, what is a multiple pilot declared goal? He said, oh, you just pick two targets close together and you just fly to them. I said, okay. And so I came in 108th. 108th out of 108. I was last, real last. I didn't come near the target, my targets. And somehow I figured that, oh, the wind is involved. You know, you got to get upwind, and you don't go downwind, things like this. I figured that out. And I made the cut in those days. They had a cut. And I was 28. And the cut was 28. You see, I wound up 8th place my first year with no crew people at all. No, I had to pick them out of the crowd. And that was your first year, was it not? Okay? Because Jeff came in 3rd, I came in 8th. He was Rookie of the Year. I was a lot older than he was, but I thought I was going to be Rookie of the Year after coming in 108th the first time. But I figured it out, you know. And then I went on to have some success in competition ballooning in the 80s and early 90s. And then these kids came up with these computers and iPads and GPSs and things like that. I don't have a clue what that's all about. I actually do, but I'm real slow at doing it. Blake, stand up. There, stand up right there. See that little man right there? He figures all my electronics out for me. And Kathy's my crew chief in the meetings, and she texts that stuff out to him, and he's got the task planned. I walk out and say, what do we do? He tells me what to do. That's how it works. And pretty good at it, pretty good at it. I sometimes let success in the week-long competitions, the national championships get in my way. And I got very conservative on the last flight. And Steve Jones, who is a 2-time national champion, sitting right there. I was in 1st place on the years you won it. He was in 10th place, and I was in 1st place. And after when the finals came out, I was in 10th place, and he was in 1st place. So I lost them twice, and there was another incident like that. One of the fun things I got to be where, let's just say that they had an observer corps. For you folks that don't know, an observer is someone that goes out, a little policeman that tells everything you do, and they measure things. And they're really pretty good, and a lot of hard work. But I got to one time fly without the observer. And so I had to debrief. And one of the questions is, did anything unusual happen on the flight? Well, it so happened that I landed down by that lake, Aquabi, and I looked out there and there were like 1,000 slimy tree frogs all over my balloon. And so I'd never seen these things before. So I found a can and I put, maybe 30 of them in this can. And they asked me the question. I went in and Bill Bird was head chief debriefer. I think he's on this wall up here. He said, "Did anything unusual? Did you see anything unusual?" I said, "Well, yeah, all these tree frogs all over my, all over my balloon." And I said, he said, "Well, what's that can?" I said, "Well," I opened it up. "Well, these tree frogs were in the darkness, so they all jumped out." Well, the observers, the debriefing people, these girls start screaming and yelling. These frogs are jumping all over the room there. And Bill Bird, he put a 500-point penalty on me for that. For you ask me anything unusual, that's unusual, And by the way, Carl Steffen helped me in it. He said, we went out to see if a place was congested on the corner of town, and he said, "Bill, I like you, but if this is congested, we're going to penalize you." I said, "Okay, Carl, that's the way I want it." Well, I had 2 houses there, and I didn't get the penalty. Carl, by the way, turned 100 years old last week. 100 years old. And so, other interesting things that happened, all flights. I recall on one of the record flights north of Amarillo. Did you launch from Amarillo once? Okay. That lake up there, I don't know the name of the lake, but a big eagle came up, started flapping around me. I guess I disturbed the nest or something, but it was beautiful. I didn't take a picture of it, couldn't find the camera, but I recall that, and also landing in, just prior to landing in the flight, went to North Dakota, launched from Amarillo, went to Millbank, North Dakota, and I landed there, and just prior to landing, I saw a pack of wolves. I said, "Oh boy." And Bob Rice is calling, "You got to land now. You've got to land now." I said, "Well, I'm doing about 20 miles an hour. Why do I need to land? I'm going to go to Canada. My plans were to go to Canada." And he said, "No, land right now." And so I landed, about a 30-knot wind hit, And I've got pictures of the blowing snow. You've seen them. Blowing snow, I'm leaning into the wind. And, it's a good thing I got down there. And Mike Gilligan's, anybody know Mike Gilligan? Okay. Mike Gilligan's mother recently died, and she lived in Millbank, South Dakota. I didn't know that. And he found all her clippings of my flight. The paper came out there and saw this thing. So I have those now. Pretty interesting stuff there. One time in Quincy, Massachusetts, guy got off there, myself, and we were on the Cool Pro balloon tour. I don't know what year it was, late 70s or early 80s. I saw this beautiful place to land. I think 7 balloons landed in there, and it was green grass, just gorgeous. Laid the balloon over and started sinking. We were in a cesspool. About that deep. It was awful. It was just awful. The ice sliding off, I had a Mylar metallic type balloon on the AX6 record, and the ice sliding off that was very disconcerting. See ice falling down around you all the time. One thing that Kelly didn't mention, I thought he would, he and I, there's a picture of it around here somewhere, we were at altitude, we were at 26,400 feet, and I started going down on one knee, and I started feeling really bad, and I said, "Kelly, you know how to land this thing, don't you?" And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, you look pretty bad." And I said, "I feel pretty bad." And he said, "Well, if you just plug in your oxygen, everything will be all right." And I twisted and come off the oxygen and didn't realize it. But I'm going to tell you, it goes down pretty quickly. You don't have time to acclimatize when you're using oxygen all the way up. And so that was kind of funny, I thought, but at the time it wasn't too funny. It was real. I thought it was kind of fun to land behind Alan Jackson, the country western star, $38 million home in Nashville. That was pretty neat. I've never seen a home that expensive. And landed there. I saw another eagle down in Florida, flew rather low between two pine trees, and there's a big eagle nest, and I saw that. Also very interesting. The flights, to me, I love to have precision flights, and a precision flight cannot be made unless you plan it. And Troy is the master at that. And I have no experience in a gas balloon, although I've flown a gas balloon in my mind many times, but I've never been on one. I've been invited several times. I don't know if it was because they wanted me to help pay for the helium, but I feel like I can fly one, and I don't fly one specifically because I know if I take one flight, I'll have to buy one. I don't want to buy one. Not at this stage. The competition is important. The world records are important. The national records are important. But what's really important to me is giving back to the sport. And I think that's what I'm about. I think that balloon races must take care of the pilots and take care of the sponsors. Now, and the sponsor does not necessarily get their money's worth, but they must be made to feel special, and they must get special treatment. Now, we just finished our 39th year at the Great Texas Balloon Race. We have given away in cash prizes $1,443,000 and $500. Now, there's no other event that does that in the world, and we're going to give away more. And we've got big plans for the next 3 years, and I'm through. Yeah. But I had the greatest compliment several months ago, and this is what I like to instill. There was a gal that came up to me and said, "Do you remember what you told me 20 years ago, 25 years ago?" I said, "No." "What did I tell you?" "No, tell her what I told you." But she said, "If you're going to be in the sport of ballooning, you've got to give back." So at that time, I was thinking that. And so I really believe in giving back to the sport, to the fellow pilots, the crews, the sponsors especially. And so this gal put on a balloon race, and it was a successful balloon race. She said the only reason she did that was because I instilled that. Any questions? I'm through.